What are you at, you girls? I should think you might find some more agreeable occupation when you know my nerves are all upset.
Can I fetch you anything, Mamma? Your smelling salts?
A fan?
Don't be fidgety, girls. Sit down, do. It was bad enough to look forward to your father's death with the certainty that we should be turned out of our house and home. To be forced to receive the heir as our guest and entertain him for untold ages.
A clergyman's week, Mamma.
10 days are past.
I wonder Mr. Collins has the impertinence to ask for an invitation. He didn't want to make up the family quarrel. He comes here, a perfect stranger, all hypocrisy, professing his goodwill and eyeing every piece of furniture as if he were to inherit it of right, instead of by that monstrous entail.
But, Mamma, Mr. Collins has the right. Entail merely means that the inheritance is in the male line, if one of us had been a boy.
Oh la, Lizzie! Your father has explained the entail to me 1,000 times, but that makes no difference. It's an iniquitous affair, and he ought to have done something about it, instead of leaving me a widow with 5 daughters and not a penny to support them beyond the 200 a year he got with me.
Mamma, may we not find comfort in the fact that dear Papa is in excellent health and but 50 years of age?
Don't nag at me, Jane. I hate the sight of Mr. Collins. He's walking round the park now, hugging himself at the thought that it will soon be his, and not the least ashamed of the entail.
We have no liking for Mr. Collins, Mamma, but if only you would try to understand that the entail is as lawful...
Don't dare to teach me, Lizzie. A nice reward for sparing you a long visit to your aunt and uncle. Ungrateful girl. I looked for a very different outcome of your holiday. But young men seem to be as scarce in other neighbourhoods as they are round us. In all the while you were away from home, did you receive one eligible offer?
No.
I never supposed you would. There's not one of you in the way of obtaining a husband except Jane. She's my sole consolation. As I was saying the other day to Lady Lucas, Jane is provided for. We shall soon see Jane keeping house in the handsomest mansion in this part of the country.
Dear Mamma, I have no such expectation.
Oh, Jane, that's an untruth. Isn't he forever at your side? Didn't he offend Lady Lucas's daughter by dancing 4 times with you and never once asking her? Tell me that, miss.
Mamma, we may guess at intentions. I think them obvious. But to have them spoken of, especially outside the family, it distresses Jane unspeakably.
So I'm to ask your leave to speak, am I? I'll not stay here to be sauced.
I beg your pardon. Mamma, I didn't...
Believe me, Mamma, I know it isn't kindness.
Stand aside, both of you. I'm going to the housekeeper's room to give the morning orders. They ought to have been done an hour ago, but my poor nerves are in such a flutter.
Might I give the orders for you, Mamma?
No, I thank you. I don't want any interference in my house. If you want to please your mother, take a little more pains to get an establishment of your own. I can't provide for you when we're all thrown out of doors by that wicked entail.
Mamma means so well by us.
I have the advantage over you in one thing, Jane. She knows nothing of my own fortunate affairs.
It was awkward for you that she asked whether you had received an ineligible offer.
Why awkward?
Well, Mr. Darcy is very handsome, very rich, and of high birth and breeding. Oh, his station is much above ours.
At the time, I did not think him eligible in character.
Oh, I ought to have understood. You rejected Mr. Darcy because you did not love him.
I rejected him because I was foolishly prejudiced by that lying tale in which he figured as mean, disloyal, and revengeful. Now I have the satisfaction of knowing that I refused the most generous and upright of men.
Poor Lizzie. But, in the circumstances, would it not it be wise to remember your own early impressions of his character? Before that false report reached your ears, I have heard that you speak strongly against his pride. Ah well, perhaps Mr. Darcy may renew his proposal.
Never! He is proud. He said himself he loved me against his will. Once love conquered pride, and he stooped to a woman beneath him in social standing. Twice as unthinkable.
Girls, here is Mr. Collins back from his walk already. You must entertain him. My nerves are not equal to a single word.
If I may be pardoned this intrusion, dear ladies, I should be gratified by permission to sit in your company.
Oh, la, Mr. Collins, you are welcome to sit here and chat, but you must excuse me from taking any part. I have the headache.
Won't you be seated, Mr. Collins?
I thank you. I thank you sincerely. I am always glad to converse with ladies. Your father, my dear cousins, has just informed me of a very surprising circumstance. He is acquainted, I understand the family is acquainted with Mr. Darcy, who is the nephew of my patroness, Lady Catherine de Bourgh. It seems that Mr. Darcy has stayed in the neighbourhood.
I've no opinion of Mr. Darcy. He showed himself far too high and mighty to please my daughters. If he is your Lady Catherine's nephew, I hope she has better manners than him.
Lady Catherine's manners are beyond anything I can describe.
Mr. Darcy is a very stuck-up young man.
He is a man of large fortune. As my cousins have the honour of acquaintance with the gentleman, they will be interested to hear of his approaching marriage.
Oh, I'm sick and tired of hearing of young men's marriages. But who is it to?
To his cousin, Lady Catherine's only child and heiress.
Very suitable, I dare say.
May I ask, is the engagement recent?
To be precise, the engagement is not yet definite, but Lady Catherine assures me that she intends the match. You inquired concerning Lady Catherine's manners. Briefly, they are of a woman whom one cannot regard with too much deference. Some reckon her proud, but I have never seen anything but affability in her character. Occasionally, I am honoured by requests to make up her a game of cards in the evening. Frequently, she will stop by the gate of my valuable rectory which she bestowed upon me, and summon me to receive her advice upon the management of my property or the parish. The minutest concerns of all her neighbours are of interest to Lady Catherine. She has even condescended to advise me to marry. On that topic, however, I do not propose to enlarge until Mrs. Bennet is relieved of her headache and an opportunity arrives of broaching it privately.
What do you say, sir? Girls, it is high time you took the air. Go out for a walk.
I should be gratified if they would honour me. That is to say, if Miss Jane would honour me by remaining within call.
Oh, as for Jane, but that does not signify. I will explain. You had better both remain within call. Go into the library, your father won't mind. Pray be seated, Mr. Collins. Take the settee.
Well, if your headache is not too severe, dear Mrs. Bennet, I will.
Oh, lad, that's gone off. But I must warn you with regard to Jane.
Pardon me the interruption, dear madame, but you must allow me to open this interview. At the outset, I desire to assure you of my profound concern for yourself and your 5 daughters in the circumstance of my being next in the entail, and therefore heir to Mr. Bennet's estate.
Ah, sir, that is a grievous affair for my poor girls, you must confess.
Sensible as I am of the hardship to my fair cousins, I desire to make them every possible amends.
Very right and proper, sir, I am sure. But if it's Jane you have in mind...
With the aforesaid object in view, I come hither. Having now spent several days in the society of your beautiful and accomplished offspring, I have decided to make formal application for the hand of the eldest, Miss Jane. By your leave, by this choice of the eldest, I make no reflection on the charms of the remaining 4. I cannot marry more than one. Miss Jane's seniority is not the sole cause of my preference. I observe her...
Stay, Mr. Collins. I beg you to let me put in a word. I feel I must mention, I must hint, that Jane is already, that is, she is likely to be provided for. Any other of the girls, I am confident, that is, I believe, they have not pledged their hearts. Jane, however, the gentleman who is about to become attached to Jane, has an exceedingly fine establishment.
Say no more, madame. Miss Jane, I admit, did to me have the superior claim, but my affections are not fixed. Miss Elizabeth, I have observed, has a pair of handsome, dark eyes and a sprightly manner. I have no doubt she will prove an adornment to my rectory. As I have but a few days for further courtship, I shall be glad if you will use your influence with her to procure me a private audience forthwith.
Oh dear, yes, certainly. Lizzie, I want you, Lizzie. I am sure Lizzie will be very happy. I am sure she can have no objection. Not you too, Jane. Mr. Collins has something to say to Lizzie. Come with me, Jane. I need you upstairs.
Dear ma'am, do not go. Mr. Collins must excuse me. He can have nothing to say to me that anybody cannot hear. I am going away myself.
Nonsense, Lizzie. I desire you will stay where you are.
Jane?
Jane is to come with me. Lizzie, I insist upon you hearing Mr. Collins.
Very well, mamma.
Believe me, my dear Miss Elizabeth, that your modesty is far from doing you any disservice. Rather adds to your other perfections. You would have been less amiable in my eyes had there not been this little unwillingness. You can hardly doubt the purport of my discourse, however. Your natural delicacy may lead you to dissemble. I have singled you out as the companion of my future life. But before I am run away by my feelings on the subject, perhaps it would be advisable to...
But, sir...
Perhaps it would be advisable for me to state my reasons for marrying.
Your reasons, Mr. Collins, are admirable, I make no doubt. But for me, they can
If
have
I
no
might be
possible...
allowed to proceed, my reasons for marrying are, first, that I think it right for every clergyman in easy circumstances, like myself, to set an example of matrimony in his parish. Secondly, I am convinced that it would add greatly to my happiness. And thirdly, which perhaps I ought to have mentioned earlier, but you heard me mention to your mother, my marriage is the particular advice and recommendation of Lady Catherine. Twice has she condescended to give me her opinion unasked. On the last occasion she said, Mr. Collins, you must marry. A clergyman like you must marry. Choose properly. Choose a gentlewoman for my sake and for your own. Let her be active, useful sort of person, not brought up high, but able to make small income go a good way. Find such a woman as soon as you can and bring her to the rectory, and I will visit. And here I may observe, my fair cousin, that I do not reckon the notice and kindness of Lady Catherine de Bourgh as among the least of advantages in my power to offer. Your wit and vivacity must, I think, be acceptable to her, especially when tempered with the silence and respect due to her rank.
But, Mr. Collins, do allow me
In good time, my dear Miss Elizabeth. It remains to be told why my search was directed hither. For in my own neighbourhood, I assure you, are many amiable young women. The fact is, that being as I am to inherit this estate after the death of your honoured father, who, however, may live for many years longer, I cannot satisfy myself without resolving to choose a wife from among his daughters. This has been my motive, my dear cousin, and I flatter myself it will not sink in your esteem.
And I must indeed admit, sir...
And now, nothing remains but to assure you in the most animated language of the violence of my affection. To fortune I am indifferent, and shall make no demand that nature upon your father, since I am well aware it could not be complied with. On that head I shall be uniformly silent, and you may assure yourself that no ungenerous reproach shall ever pass my lips when we are married.
You are too hasty, sir. You forget that I have made no answer. Accept my thanks for the compliment you are paying me. I am very sensible of the honour of your proposals, but it is impossible for me to do otherwise than decline them.
I am not now to learn that it is usual with young ladies to reject the addresses of the man whom they secretly mean to accept when he first applies for their favour, and that sometimes the refusal is repeated a second, or even a third time. I am, therefore, by no means discouraged by what you have said, and shall hope to lead you to the altar ere long.
Upon my word, sir, your hope is rather extraordinary after my declaration. I am not one of those young ladies, if such there be, who are so daring as to risk their happiness on the chance of being asked a second time. You could not make me happy, and I am the last woman in the world who could make you so. Nay, were your friend, Lady Catherine, to know me, I am persuaded she would find me ill qualified for the situation.
Were it certain that Lady Catherine would think so. But I cannot imagine her ladyship would at all disapprove of you. And you may be certain that when I have the honour of seeing her again, I shall speak in the highest terms of your modesty, economy, and other amiable qualifications.
Indeed, Mr. Collins, all praise of me will be unnecessary. You must give me leave to judge for myself. I wish you very happy and very rich, and by refusing your hand, do all in my power to prevent your being otherwise.
When I do myself the honour of speaking to you next on the subject, I shall hope to receive a more favourable answer. Perhaps you have already said as much to encourage my suit as consistent with the true delicacy of the female character.
Really, Mr. Collins, you puzzle me exceedingly. If what I have said can appear to you in the form of encouragement, I know not how to express my refusal in such a way as to convince you.
For reasons already stated, my fair cousin, I shall attribute it to your wish of increasing my odour with suspense, according to the practice of elegant females.
I assure you, sir, that I have no pretensions to the elegance of affected coyness. My feelings in every respect forbid me to accept you. Can I speak plainer?
You are uniformly charming.
There is but one way to cut short our conversation.
Ultimately, I am persuaded my proposals will not fail to be acceptable.
Lizzie, where are you going, silly girl? Well, Mr. Collins, we won't mind her. Let me be the first to congratulate you.
My most cordial thanks, dear Mrs. Bennet. By and by, I trust Miss Elizabeth will be as ready as I am to receive your congratulations. I flatter myself that her refusal of my address was the reverse of seriousness.
Refuse you? Did she?
With all the apparent firmness of a truly elegant female.
Oh dear, this will never do. Lizzie, come back. Come back, I say. I'll bring her to reason. Lizzie! Come right in, looking as unconcerned as may be, caring for nothing and nobody but to get your own way. What's this Mr. Collins tells me? You have rejected it?
Yes, Mamma.
You are a very foolish, headstrong girl, and do not know your own interest. But I will make you know it. I insist upon
Pardon me for interrupting you, madame, but can your exhortations be necessary?
That they are, Mr. Collins. She has always been a handful to control. Lizzie, I insist upon you marrying Mr. Collins. He is most obligingly doing what he can to make amends for that wretched entail, and you presume to set up your obstinate will
Pardon me
against
again, madame, but if she is really headstrong and foolish, I know not whether she would be very desirable wife for a clergyman like myself.
Indeed, I should not, Mr. Collins.
You would, you naughty girl. Mr. Collins, you misunderstand. Lizzie is only headstrong in such matters as these. In everything else, she is as good-natured a young woman as ever lived. I will go directly to Mr. Bennet, and we shall soon settle it with her. Mr. Bennet, you must come and make Lizzie marry Mr. Collins. She vows she will not have him. And if you do not make haste, he will change his mind and not have her. Oh dear, he's not in the library. I'll speak to him on the first opportunity.
Pray do not be at the trouble, Mrs. Bennet. If my cousin persists in rejecting my suit, I feel it might be better not to force her to accept it.
Nonsense, Mr. Collins. She shan't defy her parents like this. The plague of it is that Mr. Bennet is so easy-going, he'll never put his foot down. He never does what I ask him. However, I'll assert my authority. I'll show her that her mother is not to be
madame.
with.
Pardon me. I cannot help fearing that she has defects of temper, an independence of spirit that would not contribute to my felicity.
I know. I should make you miserable.
Oh, Lizzie, how can you tell such a falsehood?
And offend Lady Catherine.
Be quiet, miss.
Enough, Mrs. Bennet. Allow me to withdraw my proposals. In doing so, I mean no disrespect to you, nor shall I resent your daughter's behaviour. The affair has turned out ill, but I cannot think I have any cause for regret in my manner of conducting it. I have meant well throughout. My object has been to secure an amiable companion for myself, with due consideration for the advantage of others. I will now, by your leave, retire to my room to compose my sermon for the coming Sunday.
Oh, you are tiresome, Lizzie. 10 to 1 he is too put out to give you another chance.
I am sorry to vex you, Mamma.
You know you are nothing of a sort. I am in a dreadful state. Such flutterings and spasms. But you have no compassion on my poor nerves. It's always the way. Those who do not complain are never pitied. I tell you what it is, Miss Lizzie, if you take it into your head to go on refusing every offer of marriage, you will never get a husband at all. Jane, you'd better talk to Lizzie. I can do nothing with her. She's been trampling on poor Mr. Collins without the smallest regard for my feelings. There's a knock at the front door. If it's your father come back, I shall fetch him into you. Then we shall see.
You're not afraid of Papa?
What would Mamma say if she knew of my earlier offer? Oh, Jane, how ridiculously I am punished for my prejudice against Darcy. You should have heard how Mr. Collins rejected by repeated refusals. He couldn't believe in my annoyance. Little did he guess that the sting of it lay in my bitter certainty that Darcy will never ask me again. Oh, I don't know whether to laugh or cry.
My dear, dear Lizzie, from my heart I pity you.
This way, Lady Catherine. Girls, the knock was Lady Catherine de Bourgh. My daughter's Lady Catherine.
Are you Miss Elizabeth Bennet?
My sister is Elizabeth.
Oh, you are the better looking.
Jane is admired, your ladyship, though Lizzie is thought to have a pair of fine dark eyes. The armchair, my lady?
May I offer you a footstool, Lady Catherine?
I require no footstool. This must be a most inconvenient sitting room for the evening in the summer. The windows are full west.
This is my morning room, Lady Catherine. We never sit here after dinner. May I take the liberty of offering your ladyship some refreshment?
I should not dream of troubling you. This is not my hour for a meal.
But your ladyship has had a long drive, a very long drive. I understand from your rector you are aware that Mr. Collins is a guest in this house. He is above composing his sermon. Ring the bell, Lizzie, and say,
I do not wish to see Mr. Collins.
Did your ladyship find the roads in good condition?
You have a very small park here.
It is nothing in comparison with yours, my lady, I dare say, but 'tis every bit as large as that of our neighbour, with whom Mr. Darcy was staying last winter. Mr. Darcy is your nephew, so Mr. Collins declares.
Mr. Darcy is my nephew.
Perhaps Mr. Darcy will be staying here again one of these days.
He will not. The object of my drive is to have a word in private with Miss Elizabeth Bennet.
With Lizzie? Oh, la! Certainly, my lady, though whatever it can be about, Elizabeth will be honoured. Come, Jane.
You can be at no loss, Miss Bennet, to understand the reason of my journey hither.
Indeed, you're mistaken, madame.
Miss Bennet, I am not to be trifled with, but however insincere you may choose to be, you shall not find me so. My character has ever been celebrated for sincerity and frankness. A report of a most alarming nature reached me 2 days ago. I was told that you are likely to be united in marriage to my nephew, my own nephew, Mr. Darcy. I know it must be a scandalous falsehood. I could not injure him so much as to suppose it possible. But I instantly resolved on setting off for this place that I might make my sentiments known to you.
If you believed it impossible to be true, I wonder you took the trouble of coming so far. What would your ladyship propose by the journey?
To insist upon having the report universally contradicted.
Your coming to see me will be rather a confirmation of it, if indeed such a report is in existence.
And do you know that it is?
I never heard it.
And can you likewise declare that there is no foundation for it?
I do not pretend to possess equal frankness with your ladyship. You may ask questions which I shall not choose to answer.
This is not to be borne, Miss Bennet. I insist on being satisfied. Has my nephew made you an offer of marriage?
Your ladyship has declared it to be impossible.
It might be impossible, it must be, as to why he retains the use of his reason. But he then had a moment of infatuation. You may have drawn him in.
If I have, I shall be the last person to confess it.
Miss Bennet, do you know who I am? His parents are no longer living. I am his aunt, and entitled to know his nearest concerns.
You are not entitled to know mine.
Let me be rightly understood. 'Tis match can never take place. No, never. Mr. Darcy is engaged to my daughter, so what do you say to that?
Only this, that if it be so, you have no reason to suppose he will make an offer to me.
Come back and sit down. The engagement between Mr. Darcy and my daughter is of a peculiar kind. From the infancy they have been intended for each other. While they were in the cradles, I planned the union.
To plan the union was as much as your ladyship could do.
Hear me in silence. My daughter and my nephew are formed for each other. They are descended on my side. And from the same noble line on their fathers, from honourable and ancient though in untitled families, their fortunes are splendid. And what is to divide them? This upstart pretensions of a young woman of no account whatever? It must be, not shall not be. For my own sake, do not try to quit the sphere in which you belong to.
In marrying your nephew, I should not consider myself as quitting that sphere. He is a gentleman. I am a gentleman's daughter. So far we are equal.
True. Your father is a man of some standing. But who was your mother's father? And who are your uncles and aunts? I have made inquiries.
Of Mr. Darcy. He is not ignorant of my connections.
Miss Bennet, if you wilfully act against the wishes of the de Bourgh family, you will not be noticed by them. You will be slighted and despised by everyone connected with them. Your name shall never be mentioned by any of us.
These are heavy misfortunes.
Tell me once and for all, are you engaged to him?
I am not.
Ah, that's better. And promise me that never to enter into such an engagement.
I will make no promise of the kind.
Miss Bennet, I am shocked and astonished. I I shall not go away until you have given me the assurance I require.
I certainly never shall give it.
A marriage with you would be a disgrace. My nephew, in the eyes of the whole world, have you no regard for his honour and credit? Are you entirely lost to every consideration that your unfeeling selfish ambition?
Lady Catherine, I have nothing further to say.
You are then resolved to have him?
I have said no such thing. I am only resolved to act in that manner which will, in my own opinion, constitute my happiness, without reference to you or to any person so wholly unconnected with me.
You refuse then to oblige me. You are determined to ruin him. Very well, very well. I take no leave of you, Miss Bennet. I send no compliments to your mother, and I am most seriously displeased. Do not imagine that your ambition will be granted. I know now how to act. I shall forbid my nephew to call upon you this afternoon.
He intends to call? He intends to call? Jane!